Hey everyone, I haven't uploaded anything in a while, and I've just decided to do this little impromptu vlog for what I read in May. I'm doing this tonight because, I wanted to record something before I go to BookCon tomorrow. This is my second year going to BookCon, and it may be the last chance I get to for a while because BookCon is in New York, and I live in New Jersey, so it's not too inconvenient getting there. But in a couple months, my parents are going to be moving to Florida, and I'm going to be moving to Indianapolis for graduate school. So I'm going to try to make this one worthwhile. So like I said, this is going to be just what I read in May. I only read 2 books in May. Well, finished 2 books. Well, technically I finished 3 books. I finished listening to the audiobook of Devil in the White City, which was okay. There are some problems with it, but not bad. So the first book I read, let me just switch hands here. The first book I read in May was can you see that? The Yiddish Policemen's Union by Michael Chabon. This is the second book I've read from his. The first book was The Amazing Adventures of Cavalier and Clay, which was very good. This one is sort of like a speculative fiction. It takes place in an alternate history where after World War II, the state of Israel failed, and all the Jews who would have lived there moved to Alaska and formed their own independent territory. And after about, I think, 50 or 60 years, that territory is being reclaimed by the United States. And it follows this one man named Landman, who's a detective, because he, like all the other Jewish people in that colony, are kind of scrambling to figure out where they're going to go once the United States reclaims their territory. And he's sort of down on his luck detective. He lives in a hotel because he's divorced from his wife. And, in the same hotel where he's living, sorry about that, a man is killed, and he's investigating the murder. And as he digs deeper into who this man is, he finds out that he's a prodigy. He was the son of a famous rabbi. And he showed a lot of promise as a young man, and some people believe that he was the Jewish Messiah and that it was his destiny to return the Holy Land to the control of the Jewish people. Now, it's very... the book has a very interesting writing style. It has this very sort of like purple prose because it's sort of noir inspired. So it's kind of very, I guess, I don't know what you call it, but it's very sort of colorful. It's a little difficult to get into. Michael Chabon uses like 10 metaphors every page. I'm exaggerating, but only a little, so it's a little difficult to get into. And the plot is well structured and interesting, and the relationships between the characters are very well fleshed out. The characters are very complex, and they feel realistic. I gave it 3 stars, though, just because the ending is a little disappointing. Although I may switch that to 4 stars, just because overall it's a very well-written book. The world building is sound. The world feels lived in. It's very interesting to learn about the Jewish culture of this region they're in. It's very atmospheric and very enjoyable, but it's a little, like I said, it's a little difficult to get into. So that was that was the Yiddish Policemen's Union by Michael Chabon. Can you see that? Right, so the other book I finished reading this literally an hour ago, is Scythe by Neil Shusterman. This is a YA dystopian sci-fi, and I read this week because I bought it at last year's BookCon, and I needed to finish all the books I read that I got from last year's BookCon, so I did that. So basically the premise of this book is that it's like 250 years in the future. Um, the internet has evolved into this sort of omniscient, godlike being known as the Thunderhead that doesn't control the world, but it I guess you could well yeah I guess you could say controls the world. It makes sure that everyone has enough to eat. It makes sure that there's enough living space for everyone. It makes sure that everyone's safe. Um, and also, at some point in the history of this world, shortly after the Thunderhead emerged, they sort of um, they figured out how to extend life forever. They figured out how to de-age people so they can live indefinitely, and they can bring people back from the dead. And everyone has these nanites in their bodies that help them maintain perfect health. So the problem with that is that because no one's dying naturally anymore, they need a way to control the population. So they employ these people called Scythes. They're sort of like a society within the world that govern themselves outside the jurisdiction of the Thunderhead. Um, and their job, they have to kill a certain amount of people every year, each of them, to maintain the population. And in the story of this book, there are these two teenagers, a boy and a girl. They get chosen to be apprentices for a scythe, which is rare because scythes usually just take on one apprentice at a time. And they get into a competition with each other, and whoever wins gets to become a scythe and has to kill the other. I give this book 3 stars because I thought it was entertaining, but the world building was a little flimsy. There are some questions I had, like, well, first of all, it feels a little bit too familiar to our world. They wear clothes that are, I mean, the very few times when we hear clothes being described, they're the same clothes that we wear, jeans and t-shirts. Um, the food is pretty much the same. They eat pizza, and there's football, which I find kind of odd because in this world that's where death doesn't exist anymore, and where you have people whose literal job it is to just go around and kill people in public, why are people not more desensitized to violence? Why are we not engaging in more violent sports for entertainment? And also, there wasn't really that much description of the world. The author doesn't do a good job of describing what things look like, what people look like that often. And again, there are some sort of unanswered questions with this, like, there's not really much of a bureaucracy to make sure that the right people become scythes, morally upstanding people who are going to take the job seriously. It's just kind of left to the whims of the Scythe government. And also, in this amazingly technologically advanced society, why do they not how come in these 200 plus years they haven't found a better way to control the population than just having people go around killing each other? And early in this book, I was wondering, why haven't they tried to colonize other planets and develop space travel, send some people there to alleviate the population on Earth? And they explain why, and the explanation kind of makes sense because it's dangerous to travel into space and you can't revive people if they get killed in space. But when I read that, I thought, okay, well then why don't they send some kind of artificial intelligence there? And why can't they develop some kind of technology? Like I've read about this possible technology they may have in the future where you can input your genetic code and that will transmit it to across space to another planet, and they'll kind of build like a replica of you, an exact genetic replica of you, a clone, and that with all your consciousness and your memories uploaded to fulfill your role on that planet. I mean, I guess the author may not have heard of that, but whatever. That's what I would do. And also, what was I going to say? I forgot what I was going to say. Whatever. So, what else was I going to say? Okay, yeah. So this book doesn't really have much of a plot. It's just them going throughout their training, and there's this kind of conspiracy that emerges about halfway through the book, which I thought was going to be a bigger deal than they made it out to be. It got resolved a little bit too quickly. And there's this one character they introduced that you get the feeling is going to fulfill this huge important role, but really doesn't. But I did like the characters though, and I was entertained. What was the other thing I wanted to mention? I forgot about it. Hopefully I'll remember it later. I'll try to do another video. Hopefully I'll do a review of Scythe and remember what I wanted to tell you. But yeah, so Scythe, 3 stars. Yiddish Policemen's Union, 3 to 4 stars. Tomorrow I'm going to go to BookCon. I'm going to shoot some footage there. I'm going to compile a little vlog for you guys. I'm, of course, going to do a haul. But that's all I have for you guys. Good night. Bye.